I've known this gentleman, Olivier Melnick, for going on about 20 years. We haven't introduced you to his lovely wife, Ellen, who's here. She's keeping him on the straight and narrow, which is a lot of work. Olivier has grown into quite an interesting personality over the last few years. His new ministry now, Shalom Messiah, started that a little over a year ago after being a longtime chosen people representative or missionary, and before that from Ariel Ministry under Arnold Fruchtenbaum. Olivier's story is remarkable, and I'm honored for our friendship. He's taught me so much. Born in France, came to America after meeting the lovely Ellen. And although he has a slight accent, he will blame it on being born in Fresno, not France, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Olivier is an internationally recognized author. He speaks all over the world. And when we talked about a year ago at this time, he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it when the schedule opened up. We booked him because his story is so interesting. What he's going to share with you today is something that I believe all of us can learn from. So without further ado, I'd like you to welcome Olivier Melnick. There's the CV, and that's all fine and good, but it's the person who's... Good to see you, buddy. Oops, well, there we go. What did I do here? Okay.
You got to take a shot on the road.
Yeah, and I'm telling you.
All right.
It gets better, by the way. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me? Yes.
There we go.
All right.
Have fun.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. And this is my... Okay. Well, it's good to be back. What's wonderful is that I see so many faces that I recognize and so many friends. So this is really a treat for us to be here to spend a little bit of time with all of you. Even though it is for a solemn day as Yom HaShoah, it is really a great honor to be here. Before I get going and sharing with you, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the ministry that we started. And actually, I just got back, I think it was 2 weeks ago yesterday, got back from a trip to Israel and going back next month and at the end of the year to take a group. But the last couple of times, this next time and this last time, it was absolutely amazing. It is a country at war, there's no question about it. And you feel it, but then you don't. It's very strange. You know the country is at war. You know this is an existential war they're fighting. Like I tell people all the time, they're fighting on 7 fronts, 8 if you count the media. But it was so important to be there, and I want to encourage you to go to Israel, not just for a biblical tour. Go there if you can find, and we're starting to do this with our ministry, so talk to me if you're interested. We do take very small groups of people to do mission work, to do ministry over there. And this last time that I was 2 weeks ago, for me, it was a ministry, not ministry defining, but ministry refining. I realized the importance of what I have been calling for a few weeks now, the ministry of presence. There's no Christians in Israel, very little right now. Nobody's going there. Tourism is picking up again, but it's very, very, very slow. We need to be there. We need to bring hope. We need to bring our presence. We need to bring supplies to the IDF. And that's some of what we do with Shalom and Messiah. We're greatly blessed by so many supporters helping us financially to make the trips and bring supplies to the IDF, supplies that they need. The reservists don't get very much. The Air Force gets the most, the Army gets next, and then the reservists get the breadcrumbs. So they need a lot of things. And been working with a few dear friends, pastors. One of them, you might know the name, might ring a bell, Pastor Brandon Holthouse. who's become a dear friend over the years, and he and I are joined forces in our ministries to make a difference in Israel. So I want to encourage you, yes, the country is at war, but it's still safe to go there, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference. The ministry of presence makes a huge difference, and it opens doors. I've seen it. I was there a few weeks ago, and actually there's a few people here. Where are they? They're over there, who were in Israel with us, with Brandon's group. Raise your hand if you were in Israel with us. Yes. Praise the Lord. It has opened some doors for conversations and great opportunities like I never thought would be possible. So for such a time as this, we need to, like they say, carpe diem, seize the day. This is what we are doing right now. Things will change, but for right now, this is where we are with our ministry involved in Israel. And why do I tell you all this before I even start about Yom HaShoah? Because I tell you, every time I speak on Yom HaShoah every year, there are always people that wonder, is it really necessary to be saying all this and to be doing all those photos and everything? And let me tell you something. It's clear to me that one main reason why we need to do Yom HaShoah today even more than ever is October 7th, 2023. Because if you think that people will not forget, look at October 7th, 2023, and you see that actually things are happening again. People have said that Jewish history, and it is true because I've seen it in books that I've read, Jewish history can be defined in pre- and post-Holocaust history. The Holocaust is a marker on Jewish history, on the timeline. I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people will say that the history of modern Israel can be defined by October 7, 2023. There was before October 7, 2023, and after October 7, 2023. So yes, Yom HaShoah is critical more than ever because of October 7, 2023. And what I wanted to do today is share with you a story about my family, make it very personal. Some of you, I don't know how many in this room, but some of you have heard parts of the story about my mother in her rescue, and I wanted to share it with more details and glean from it what can we learn from it that actually makes sense for us today and moving forward into the future. So I want to see if this works. If I push the right button, maybe it will. There you go. So our mission statement, interesting thing I want to share with you. The ministry mission statement is expose and fight anti-Semitism, equip and mobilize Christians, and until I return from Israel, it was and lead Jewish people to their Messiah. I returned from Israel, I met with my board. Rob is part of my board. And we voted, we decided that we needed to add the word serve, because right now, what we're doing, which opens some great doors, is serving. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's where we are right now in Israel. That's why I'm going back several times a year as we move forward. So now it reads, serve Jewish people and lead them to Messiah. It's just one word, but I think it makes a big difference. I didn't bring a book table. I usually don't do that on Yom HaShoah, but you can find all my books on Amazon. You can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X. I post daily on my daily devotional and several times a week on the Shalom in Messiah Ministries. So let's get into the message. Let me pray and we'll get started. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to share with the family here, such a time as this. Lord, help equipping us and help us understand, help us apply some of what happened in the past to today so we can actually contribute something fruitful towards your kingdom for the future. In Yeshua's name, amen. So I'm going to divide this into 5 parts. I want to talk about the different components of the story of my mother, and from each one we'll learn. The players, the rescue, the transit, the shelter, and the outcome. And I want to first talk to you about the players. Every time I look at it, about that time of history, I see 5 groups, which can really be divided into 2 subgroups of the players, the negative and the positive. The perpetrators, the co-perpetrators, the bystanders, those are the negative. And then the victims and the helpers, that's the positive. And let me introduce you to the victim I'm discussing. So 2 pictures here next to each other. On the left, you see Evelyn, which is my mother always joked about her hair. She said that she was a very short lady, but when the way she did her hair in the 40s gave her an extra 4 or 5 inches. You see that picture on the left, that's her probably a few years after the war with her 2 cousins in front of her, Richard and Nicole, who were rescued with her as the story will develop. So that's a picture of them. And on the right, that's my grandmother, Berthe Weinsweig, and my mother, Evelyn Weinsweig, as a young girl. And that would be just a few, maybe days or a few weeks before the story unraveled with her father being taken by the Gestapo. So those are the victims. And the players, well, first you have the perpetrators. The Gestapo, just mentioned it, which is an abbreviation for Geheime Staatspolizei, secret state police. They came to our home, the home that I grew up in on the outskirts of Paris, and asked for my maternal grandfather, Maurice Weinsweig, to go with them. He was just one of 6 million. Maurice was that's a picture of him right there. My maternal grandfather, Maurice Weinsweig, was hiding in a cellar waiting for his papers. He was in France legally, but he didn't have the official papers he needed to prove his legal stay in France. And he was married to my grandmother, who was Jewish, born in France, but he was not. He was from Poland and Russia, depending on which day you look. Those borders change all the time. It would be like having a green card, but you don't have the official green card, you just have a piece of paper. It was just not a good time for a Jew to be in France without official papers in 1942. So he was exposed by a neighbor who worked for the French police. Was exposed by a neighbor upstairs. I actually remember that man. I was a little kid, but I remember I sat on his lap. It is what it is. The French police actually was part of what you could call the co-perpetrators, also known as la milice or the militia, working under the authority of Marshal Philippe Pétain from the decentralized Vichy government in the center of France. They were Hitler's willing executioners, often as anti-Semitic as the Gestapo, if not worse. I keep forgetting to mention to people that you will get my notes. You probably know me by now. If you there is a QR code at the end of the presentation. If you snap it, you'll get the notes. So you don't have to worry about taking all the, writing anything. You'll get all the PowerPoint for free through our website. And I recommend you get a copy of it because there's a lot of information. So the co-perpetrators were the French police. Many within the regular French police were very helpful to the Nazis in rounding up Jews whenever they could. Maurice was taken during the largest roundup known as La Rafle du Veldiv on July 19, 1942, when a lot of Jews were taken by the French police and the Gestapo and put together into some kind of a winter stadium for bicycle races, and before they would be put on a train or several trains to go to Eastern Europe, one-way ticket to the camps. The bystanders, that's another group within the perpetrators. The perpetrators, the co-perpetrators, those who help, and the bystanders. There were the French people, and not just the French people, but in my mother's story, there were the French people, fear of losing benefits such as food rations. You see people in line on that picture waiting for a loaf of bread. Those little tickets that you see that are like bread rations. People were afraid to lose their benefits, or fear of being arrested, fear of death, peer pressure, anti-Semitism. Any of the above made it that many people did nothing. And friends, a bystander who does nothing, you've heard me say that before, I'll say it again, only facilitates the work of a perpetrator. If you do nothing, you're doing something. Of all 18 tenants in Maurice's building, where I grew up, my house, most stayed home quietly, doing or saying nothing. What was very interesting is that when I think about the makeup of the people living at that time in a building where my grandfather lived, they were perpetrators, co-perpetrators, bystanders, and even rescuers in the same building. People are all mixed together. Sometimes they don't even know it. But I think of the families that I know who live there. There was a family across the hall, across the courtyard, that would have rescued my grandfather and taken him to safety had they known he was hiding in the cellar from the Gestapo. And there were the people upstairs, the man from the police who gave him away. By the way, the reason why he gave away my grandfather was because he was secretly in love with my grandmother, and he thought if he gets rid of the husband, he'll get the wife. It never worked. So the players, the helpers now. Who are the helpers? And that's when I want to start. I want you to start thinking about how we're going to connect this to today, because we are at a place in our history, in humankind history, where things are repeating. But we don't have to repeat the past by being bystanders of the present. That's my hope for all of us. The helpers were neighbors, friends, family, strangers, people that did not know the people they were helping, at least at first. The rescue, number 2. It started with false papers. My mother had to get false papers. I was never told how she got them, but she told me. She said, we got false papers, and we couldn't move without false papers. So her and her 2 cousins received false papers allowing them to transit out of occupied Paris, or occupied France, I should say, because it was a line that was not quite dividing France in half, but there was the occupied zone and the free zone, la zone libre, in the southwest of France. And so the false papers provided them with a ticket to safety, but that's just the beginning. Now they have the papers, they have to be moving somewhere. But the false papers raise a question that I want to raise today, and I'm not sure that I can give you an answer, but at least I want to raise the question. I want you to think about it. And I want you to think about it from a biblical perspective. Here's the question. Is it okay to lie to save a life? This was rhetorical, but thank you for answering. I would lie to save a life, but what does the Bible have to say? Well, look at Joshua chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. Then Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men as spies secretly from Shittim, saying, go, view the land, especially Jericho. So they went and came into the house of a harlot, whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. It was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, men from the sons of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land. So this is parallel to what happened to my grandfather. He's hiding somewhere, and somebody says, hey, there's a Jew in the building. And the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. It came about when it was time to shut the gate at dark that the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. My grandmother, when her husband was hiding in a cellar, Gestapo came to say, we know your husband is in the building. He needs to come with us. She said, I don't know where he is. Now, at the time, my grandmother was not a believer. I don't know that she ever became one. I have no reason to believe she did, but we don't know all the details about everybody's life, everybody's history, so I can't tell you with certainty. I hope she did. But at the time, she decided to lie for her husband. I don't know where he is. He left. He's not here. She did the same as Rahab did. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax which she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued them on the road to the Jordan, to the fords, and as soon as those who were pursuing them had gone out, they shut the gate. In the case of Rahab, the story is it ends a little better, because in the story of my grandfather, the Gestapo officer said, "We will come back tomorrow. If he is not ready to come with us, we'll take you and your daughter instead," even though they had their legal papers, and it was 1942, it was not quite where they took all the Jews no matter what. So she ended up telling her husband, who said, "Okay, you know what, I'll go and I'll come back." He went, never came back, and that's when my mother had to get her false papers. So Rahab didn't have a problem lying. What about the Hebrew midwives? That's another case of not telling the truth. And there's a part of the verse that I find very interesting. Then the king of Egypt, that's from Exodus chapter 1. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah, and the other one named Puah. And he said, when you are helping the Hebrew women to give birth and see them upon the birth stool, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt had commanded them, but let the boys live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, and let the boy live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife can get to them." So God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very mighty, because the midwives feared God. He established households for them. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Every son who is born you are to cast into the Nile, and every daughter you are to keep alive." I find this fascinating, that the midwives, in verse 17, the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt had commanded them. And then the next verse, so God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very mighty. So the midwives feared God, so they lied. That's what I'm getting. I'm not making a conclusion for you. I'm just exposing you to the word. Is it okay to lie to save a life? Some people did. Some famous people did. Harriet Tubman, she lied to save many lives. Underground Railroad, you've heard about that. Corrie ten Boom, she lied to save lives. Some people might not know Raoul Wallenberg, Swedish diplomat. He lied. He made a lot of false visas, false papers. And there's a great story. I hope it's going to play okay. It's on the next slide. This is a testimony of Raoul Wallenberg's big black book. This is a case of creativity at its best to save lives. How far people will go to be creative, to lie, to save lives. So let me see if I can play it.
Raoul went after these
We need to bring it up for the sound.
To the Austrian border. But one of these occasions, he had Peranger with him too, and he had a big black book. And on the way to the railway station, he stopped and screamed at the Nazis in German. He spoke perfect German. "How dare you are taking our people, they all our protected people. And all of those people who have my papers turn around." And there was one of my very good girlfriends from here now. She said, "Well, what can happen? They kill her anyhow." She turned around, she didn't have any paper, and her sister and her mother. And they got on the truck, okay? And then he started to open his black book and started to read names like a machine gun. And the people called on those who could still walk. And they walked out, whether that was their name or not. And he brought about 1,000 people back to Budapest to these safe houses. And on the way home, Peranger said to him, "Raoul, I didn't know we have a black book and you have names. When did you do that?" And Raoul started hysterically laughing. He says, "I show it to you when I've done it." And he opens it up, and not one single name. Nothing. But that was his idea. He had to do something. He had to save people. And the same thing, he had driver's licenses and insurance papers, whatever he could find in Hungarian, what the Germans couldn't read. And he took it all the way to the train, and demanded to open the doors, and he yelled to the people, "I have your papers here, get out, Mr. So-and-so." And there too, some people, "Oh, maybe we can get away." And he handed them, some of them got the Schutzpass, not with their name, but who cares, and insurance papers and tax papers, you name it. And he brought them back.
Creativity at its best. There was no name in the book. And this was his idea. So there's always something that can be done. Actually, in Judaism, and I discovered this recently, it's known as pikuach nefesh. It means saving a soul in Hebrew, when the preservation of human life overrides all other commandments in Judaism, all of the 613 commandments, 613 mitzvot. It's a Talmudic ruling, but it's derived from Leviticus 18:5 and Ezekiel 20:11. And so it is permitted by Jewish law to make exceptions to lie to save a life. Now, let's keep moving. The transit. So now the person my mother has false papers with Richard and Nicole, and what do they do now? My mother was a teenager, and Richard and Nicole were not even in their teens. They were smaller kids. So they have to be put on a train. So the transit is a big part. They go from A to B. My mother was put on a train with her false papers. People either sent or accompanied rescued people to safety. They got to the place of safety. My mother was brought to a farm in the southwest of France with her cousins. That is Mr. and Mrs. Daricot, the family that sheltered them for 2 years at their own cost, at their own risk, without resources. I was at Yad Vashem. I took a couple on a private tour of Yad Vashem 2 weeks ago when I was there, and we went through the museum, and then when we were done, I took them to a place that I will show you in a few minutes, where these people actually were recognized as righteous among the nations. This family, the Daricot, Pierre and Ida Daricot, were, after their death, they were recognized as righteous among the nations. They sheltered my mother and her 2 cousins. There's a video about it on our YouTube channel, with my mother's name on it, Evelyn. So if you type Evelyn on my YouTube channel, you'll find there's only one video. So it's a news video from France. I put subtitles. You got to watch it. It's an incredible story. But they just did it because there was the right thing to do. They sheltered my mother and her 2 cousins. And now you think about it, what's the outcome when you look at today? Well, here's the outcome, friends. My mother was safely hidden on that farm. She survived, returned to Paris to marry this beautiful man, George Melnick, and they had 2 kids. And yes, this plump little boy in the middle of the picture is me. Okay? I wouldn't be here today talking to you if that family of farmers with no weapons, no money, very little culture, just simple farmers, saved my mother and her 2 cousins. They did something. We can all do something. All of us can do something. Not only that, but 70 years later, my mother was reunited with the 2 brothers of that family when they received, on behalf of their parents, the medal from Yad Vashem. And that's the video that you can see on our YouTube channel. Yeah, my mother got to the train station when she arrived, and every time I see it, it just gets me in a kishkis, and that's Yiddish for the gut. When she looks at the 2 gentlemen in their 70s, and she's in her 80s, and she says, "Monsieur Daricot, je suis en vie à cause de vous, grâce à vous." And she says, "Mr. Daricot, I am alive because of you." She said it twice. "I'm alive because of you." And then they're so cute. They look at her and they go, "She hasn't changed. Last time they saw her, she was 15. You got to watch the video. It's a great testimony. It's a great story. But so the next picture is like 2 weeks ago, literally, when you see me pointing to Pierre and Ida Daricot in the end of the property at Yad Vashem. They have the name of all the Gentiles. They started to plant trees in 1953, I think it started to plant trees to recognize all the righteous Gentiles who did something to help the Jews. It cost them money, it sometimes cost them their life. It was incredible stories. I still find some, not that many, but they exist. And at the end of the property, they ran out of space for trees, so they built those big tall walls and they put names every time they find a new one by country and by year. So I took the group that I was touring the museum with, and we end up the whole tour with a story of how my mother was saved. And I tell you, it's something that that's so important, and I call it remembrance and rehearsal. Why? We remember the past, and that's what we do today. And I'm so grateful that we don't just do Yom HaShoah, but we also remember the hostages in October 7th, because it's not over. This is part of history, and this is unfortunately history in the making. We're still living through it. That's why it's important. And again, this is important because of this. There's a connection here. Some people have actually called the events of October 7, 2023, Holocaust 2.0, because it was the largest number of casualties in Israel in one day since the Holocaust. So we remember the past, we assess the present, and we prepare for the future. How do we prepare for the future? That's pretty dark for me to say something like this. Well, friends, 25 years ago, when I started teaching, learning, and doing conferences and teaching on anti-Semitism, people look at me going like, Olivier, really? That's all you want to talk about? And I felt like a watchman on the wall, like, Isaiah 62:6, the watchman on the wall, looking for what's happening to tell the people. And I was not always received positively. So, Olivier, you're so negative. It's not that bad. It's coming. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Here we are. Friends, there's not one day for at least the last year, if not more, if you watch the news on any channel, when you don't hear the word anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic. Every day. It's here. We can no longer be silent. And we certainly cannot afford to be bystanders. Why? Because we answer to a higher authority. Is God going to tell us, well done, good and faithful servant, if we ignore the Jews, his chosen people, the apple of his eye? We have to take a stand. There's a passage of scripture, you've heard me preach from that before. I'll just touch on it for a minute as we come to a close here. Matthew 25, 34 through 40. The whole passage is, I think, 25, 31 through 46. It's the parable of the sheep and the goats. The king is a reference to Yeshua, of course. And this is something that will take place at the second coming when Yeshua returns after the 7-year tribulation. So that you don't have to agree with me, but there's going to be the next event is the rapture. Could happen before the end of the day. Could happen before the end of my message. Some people go like, yeah, be nice. Okay, we're almost done. So the next event is the rapture. Then we have a 7-year tribulation. Then we have the return of Messiah. Then the 1,000-year, literal 1,000-year millennial. Then we enter through the eternal order for which there is no end. And there's 2 destinations. The lake of fire and brimstone, eternal suffering for those who do not place their trust in Yeshua's death for their sins, and eternal bliss in the presence of God, New Jerusalem, new heaven, new earth. And that's where you want to go. So if you haven't made a decision, or if anybody watching me online, today's your day to make a decision to trust Yeshua for your sins and to believe. In that passage, the king is returning, Yeshua is returning, and he's about to establish his kingdom, which hasn't been done yet. It will be done when he returns. The kingdom will happen when the king is back here on earth to reign from Jerusalem on the throne of David. From the throne of David, not before. But he is a king. He's just in exile right now. Kind of. He's still in charge, though. He hasn't lost that power. ever. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison or come to you?" The king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even to the least of them, you did it to me." During the tribulation, some Gentiles will come to a saving knowledge of Yeshua. They would have been left behind after the rapture. They come to a saving knowledge of Yeshua. They understand the place of Israel in God's plan. They love the Jews. They want to make a difference. After they get saved, they say, "Okay, we want to help those Jewish people that are being persecuted." And that's what happens here. But friends, I see something here. I see a model. We don't have to discuss until the end of the day, I'm pre-trib, I'm post-trib, I'm mid-trib, I'm three-quarter trib, I'm 7/8. It doesn't matter. Because here what I see is the treatment of the Jewish people by Christians. This is not about the church. This is not about believers. This is about the Jews being treated well during the tribulation. Are we going to be with them during tribulation? Are we going to be... Let's not discuss that. Let's not worry. Let's apply that principle of taking care of the Jews today. Because the principle is applicable today. There's no time to wait. This is part of why we do what we do in Israel right now. We want to make a difference. Ministry of presence, supplies, love, care, prayer. All that opens doors for the gospel. And that's what it's all about. Because if you don't preach the gospel, I'll repeat what I said, I think, last time. Humanitarian work is great. No question about it. I mean, you see some of those ads on TV when they say, like, this, I'm not going to mention the organization, but you probably know which one I'm talking about, where they say, help us send food to Holocaust survivors and send people back to Israel. What they do is great. But it's just humanitarian. And if you're just feeding somebody, you're feeding somebody on the way to hell. That's not enough. So, let me summarize what I'm talking about here based on the story of my mother, which is part of history, and what we're looking at, what's unraveling in front of our very eyes for such a time as this. We're talking about rescuing from danger. So, rescue from danger, transit to safety, shelter from danger, and return home. And to do that, you have to make a decision. You have to be involved. Everybody can and should make a difference. Look at Raoul Wallenberg. The big black book of Raoul Wallenberg. White pages. No names. It was bold. It was courageous. That's what we need to be. Our future is secure. I mean, mine is. I hope you know that yours is secure as well. We know where we're going. But we have to take more people with us, if we can, especially Jewish people who are not really being told anything about Yeshua as much as the rest of the world. So we have a mandate. And everybody can do something. Let me show you one more clip, and then I close telling you about this network of ours, and then we'll be done. This is the end of Schindler's List. I'm sure you remember it.
It's Hebrew from the Talmud. It says, whoever saves one life saves the world entire. Oscar, there are 1,100 people who are alive because of you. Look at them.
If I'd made more money, I threw away so much money. You have no idea. If I just...
There will be generations because of what you did.
I didn't do enough.
You did so much.
You did so much. He felt like he could have done more, but he did so much. You know the story, you've seen the movie. The question for you today is simple. That's the final question. Does God want you to be a Schindler in 2025? Ask yourself the question. Ask yourself, go home, pray about it. Ask yourself the question, Lord, do you want me to be a Schindler? Do you want me to make a difference? And if you do, how can I do it? I'm not asking you the question. He's asking you the question. This is where we are in our history. We have, I have partnered with a group that I'm part of known as Bridges to Zion Network, who does exactly what I'm talking about here by educating, mobilizing, and equipping. We do it, it's a two-way of getting people ready to rescue and shelter and protect and eventually even help to go back to the land, Jewish people. And we do this, it's a private, secure, very secure actually. We were checked recently, about a year ago, in DC, the Israeli embassy checked to see if they could find us online, and they told somebody, they said, we looked for that group, we couldn't find them anywhere. I'm going like, good, we don't want to be found because we don't exist. This is similar to the Underground Railroad for Jews. So we are building a network of people signing up to give us their information. We don't share the information with anybody, it's just for a small group of us, core group on the network, basically gathering this information to know where the people are, who we can send Jewish people for a time to safety. So it really is an underground railroad for Jews. And parallel to that, we're developing a curriculum to equip and teach Christians a series of short videos and a welcome packet that the Christian families will get when they basically will say, hey, my home is open. If a Jewish family needs rescue and shelter, they can come to my place. Friends, for years, you've heard it saying like, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, they shall prosper who love you. That's great. Don't stop. But it's time that we get skin in the game. Because that's where we are. Prayer is a foundation, but we're going to need to open our homes. We do it through the network. Here's the, oh, I thought there was a QR code there. You don't have a QR code. Okay, so that's not good. Closing prayer. Okay. You need a QR code. Is there one on the very beginning of the slide, the presentation? Can you run the slide from the back? Yeah. Can you look at the second or third slide? It would be easier if you do it your... Is there a QR code? So far, no. So far, no. Great, Olivier. Good job. There's supposed to be a... Go back. No, go back up. That big black square is where the QR code is. Here is the QR code. So, go to shalomandmessiah.com and you can go sign up on Connect with Us. And when you sign up, it will ask you a question. On the very bottom of the sign up, it will say, please tell me more about the network that Olivier spoke about. When you click that, it will generate a series of vetting process email that will get you in. And once you're in a network, you're in a network. You're not going to hear from us every week. We're not going to share the list with anybody. It's just for us to know who the like-minded Christians are all over the U.S. and parts of the world, actually. And again, go home today, remembering what Schindler did and people like him did. Remembering the story of my mother and seeing I mean, think about the outcome. Think about for a second how different the world could be if the 6 million were still alive today. So many inventions, so many innovations, so much creativity coming from Jewish people. I'll give you just one. I think it's 1959. The polio vaccine. A Jewish man. Just one man. Multiply that by 6 million. The potential for a better world. Not because Jews are better, just because it is what it is. A lot of stuff have come from Israel and from the Jews. It would be a different world. Let's play our part in making sure that my people have a place to go when it gets really bad. And let's make sure that we do it because of the gospel and with the gospel. To that effect, we have stuff, packages of materials that we'll send you if you join the network. We're working on that right now. The network doesn't raise any money. It's a network that we don't exist. We're not online. It's not a corporation. It's not a ministry. It's just, I'm looking at you, the new righteous among the nations, people wanting to make a difference like those who did during the war. We don't raise any funds. But I volunteer a lot of my time to work with that network. And our ministry, Shalom and Messiah, needs to run and pay the bills. So if you want to support Shalom and Messiah, there is also a conveniently located button right next to connect. It says donate. You can donate if you want. Now we are a 501c3. Everything is, it's a ministry, and you can donate in several ways. You can donate to a general fund to help us with what we do, and then we work for the network. Or you can also donate through Israel Ministries to help us with what we do in Israel, the trips that we make to bring supplies, to minister to the IDF, and there's great opportunities there. So pray about connecting, pray about donating, and again, ask God, Lord, do you want me to be a Schindler? Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity for me to share my heart with the people here. Lord, you know the critical time that we live in. We also know that you're still in control, that nothing is escaping you, nothing is going to happen that you were not prepared for, that you were not aware of. In many cases, things that you cause, or that you either cause or you allow to happen. So Lord, we pray that you would give us enough time to reach out to the Jewish people in a way that's going to bring more of them into your kingdom and less of them into eternal damnation. Lord, this is for such a time as this. We are ready. We are willing. We want to make a difference. Lord, for me, I want to be a Schindler. And I pray that my brothers and sisters here would honestly pray that prayer today, and that if you answer that you want them to be a Schindler, Lord, I pray that they would make the move and get prepared to rescue and shelter and protect Jewish people for such a time as this. Thank you for this group of brothers and sisters here. Bless this congregation, Lord. Bless Rob as he's leading the congregation with all the challenges that it has, with like all congregations, all groups of believers. We're not perfect, Lord, but we want to serve you, we want to obey you, we want to bring you glory. Thank you for Ben David. Bless the congregation, protect them, provide for them in a mighty way. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.